I used to believe the quiet moments in my house were the safest. The way the refrigerator clicked at night, the soft hum of the ceiling fan, the breath of the man sleeping beside me. Now I know silence can be scripted, manufactured, monitored. Because the moment I discovered the truth, the silence in my home felt staged, like someone else was listening too. My name is Lucy Alden, 32 years old, middle school English teacher, and until a few months ago, the proud wife of a man named Damian Wells. If you had asked me then, I would have told you I was lucky, ridiculously lucky. A warm home, steady marriage, comfortable routines. But luck has a way of rotting when you're not paying attention. The story I'm about to tell didn't begin with a scream or a confrontation. It began with a sound so soft I almost ignored it. A faint electronic chirp behind the bedroom wall. Before I continue my story, let me ask you something. If the one person you love and trust, the one you made marriage vows to, the one you slept beside all your life, turns out to be living a terrible secret life all those years, would you still remain in that marriage, or would you seek out of it and never look back? Share your honest opinion in the comments. I truly want to hear your perspective. That night, Damian slept deeply beside me, one arm draped across my waist the way he always did. He breathed like a man without secrets, slow, rhythmic, peaceful, and yet that tiny beep lodged itself in my mind like a thorn. Was it the smoke detector? Low battery on the thermostat? Something else? My eyes stayed open long after his closed. At 2:14 a.m., still awake, I whispered, "Damian?" He didn't move. His breathing stayed steady, like a practiced performance. Hours later, I found the source of the sound, something no wife should ever find tucked behind her bedroom wall, a device no normal man would ever own, a device no normal man would know how to install. And in that moment, it dawned on me, my home wasn't just lived in, it was observed. Not by strangers, but by my husband. My story isn't about violence. It's about discovery. About learning that the person you trust most can be the architect of your fear. About uncovering a truth so cold and calculated, it rearranged the very architecture of my memory. And it all started with that little beep in the dark. Here at Revenge Bible, we explore real psychological stories of betrayal and justice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss our next emotional reckoning. I didn't know it then, but the night I heard that sound, my marriage ended. And the woman I used to be, the quiet, compliant, trusting woman, died right along with it. To understand what came after, you need to know what life looked like before it fell apart. Damian and I met during a summer volunteer program. He was charming in a way that felt effortless. Where I was cautious, he was bold. Where I hesitated, he leaned forward. He moved through the world with quiet confidence, never loud, never boastful, but always watching. Back then, I thought his attentiveness was love. Now I realize it was surveillance in disguise. We settled in a suburban neighborhood on the edge of the city. Tree-lined streets, late afternoon joggers, school buses sighing to a stop at the same time every day. Safe, predictable, and warm. Inside our home, everything looked like a catalog version of domestic stability. Morning coffee taken on the back porch, the scent of laundry softener on freshly folded clothes, a gratitude journal I kept by my bedside, and Damian's steady routine of leaving for his consulting job at 8:15 a.m. sharp. I taught English literature at a middle school 10 minutes away. My days were full of children, paper stacks, reading assignments, the usual soft chaos of education. I found comfort in my job, even on the tiring days. Our marriage? It wasn't perfect, but it was steady. Damian joked often, laughed easily, helped around the house, and never raised his voice. People admired him. My parents adored him. Even strangers trusted him instantly. Looking back, I see the patterns, the small things I brushed off. Damian hated surprises. He preferred to know my plans days in advance. If I stayed late at work, he texted more than necessary. If I hung out with friends, he asked for photos under the guise of wanting to see my smile. He fixed things around the house without being asked. Light fixtures, door hinges, thermostat wiring. I always thought he was just handy. One afternoon in late spring, I came home from school feeling drained. A fight had broken out during lunch, and I had been part of the mediation team. I walked into the kitchen, dropped my bag on the counter, and leaned against the sink with a sigh. Damian appeared almost instantly. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said, surprised he was home so early. He smiled, brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, and said, "I know you. Something's off." Back then, I thought it was sweet. I'd never had someone read me so easily. Now I know. He wasn't reading me. He was tracking me. Everything in my life had a pattern, and Damian collected patterns like currency. But none of that felt strange at the time. He was attentive, devoted, predictable. The kind of man other women said they wished they had. One evening, after dinner, we sat together on the couch, and he asked a question so casually I didn't even think about it. "Do you ever feel watched at school?" he asked. I laughed, confused. "No, why?" He said, just curious. "It's a big campus, lots of cameras." I thought he meant school safety, but the way he said it, soft, thoughtful, lingering, sent a brief cold ripple down my spine. It passed quickly, and I forgot about it. There were other moments, too. Little things. He always seemed to know where I had left anything. Keys, wallet, phone. He remembered conversations, word for word. He never got angry, even when anger was reasonable. Instead, he grew more still, more attentive. Once I woke at 3 a.m. and found him sitting in the living room in the dark. He told me he was just thinking. I believed him. Trust makes you blind. Blindness makes you comfortable. Comfort makes you vulnerable. And vulnerability, I learned too late, is the perfect environment for secrets to thrive. For 9 years, I lived beside a ghost, wearing a gentle man's skin. And I didn't know it, because he didn't want me to know it. Not yet.
The betrayal didn't come crashing down all at once. It seeped into my life slowly, like cold water rising beneath a locked door. It started with a curious letter, an envelope tucked into our mailbox, addressed to Daniel Mercer. No return address, no markings. I held it in my hand, staring at it with the kind of confusion that feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. When Damian came home, I placed the envelope on the kitchen counter. "Do we know a Daniel Mercer?" I asked casually. For the first time in our marriage, I saw him freeze. Just a fraction of a second, but enough. A tiny, imperceptible glitch in the perfect husband act. He picked up the envelope and said, "Probably a misdelivery." His voice was smooth, but his hand trembled ever so slightly. That night, he didn't put the letter in the trash. He folded it into his work bag. Later, I found out the letter wasn't a mistake. It was a warning. A few days after the envelope arrived, I noticed Damian becoming more watchful than usual. He asked more questions. He checked in more frequently. He hovered. On a Wednesday evening, after I finished grading papers, I walked into the living room and found Damian sitting at the coffee table, sorting through old documents. His laptop was open. Files were spread out neatly. "What are you looking for?" I asked. He closed the laptop with a soft click. "Just organizing tax stuff." But something was off. He didn't look like a man doing taxes. He looked like a man preparing for something. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Over dinner, I mentioned the letter again. He dismissed it quickly, just a little too quickly, and changed the subject to my day. I told myself not to overthink it. Marriage requires trust. Or at least that's what people say. One night, a week later, I came home earlier than expected. Damian wasn't there. I called out for him, but the house was silent. I walked into our bedroom, and that's when I heard it. A faint, intermittent chirp. Something electronic, something hidden. I pressed my ear to the wall. It was coming from deep behind the drywall. My heart beat faster. Curiosity pushed me toward the closet. I moved the shoe rack aside, feeling the paneling. No seams, no screws, just smooth wall. But the sound was unmistakable. That night, Damian came home late with an excuse that was too detailed to be natural. He smelled like cold air and metal. Not like the office, not like his cologne. "What's that beeping sound in the bedroom?" I asked. He looked at me with a softness too deliberate. "Oh, that. Probably the wiring. I'll take a look later." He didn't. And the next morning the beeping was gone, as if someone had turned it off. Context makes coincidences frightening. One morning, shortly after, I woke early for work and found Damian still asleep. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up, and for a split second, I saw a notification banner. Secure backup transfer completed. When he woke up, I asked him about it. "Routine system sync," he said. He didn't elaborate. That evening, I asked if he'd ever used another name. He looked at me with a stillness so deep, it felt rehearsed. "Why would you ask that?" I shrugged. "Just curious." He stepped closer, cupped my face with both hands, and said, "You know me better than anyone." But I didn't. Not even close. The betrayal became unmistakable 2 weeks later. A detective came to my school looking for me during lunch break.
He didn't say much, only that he needed to ask about someone I might know. He showed me a photo. Not of Damian, but of Daniel Mercer. The resemblance was undeniable. Same jawline, same posture, same man. My blood turned to ice. "When did you last see this individual?" the detective asked. I couldn't speak. All I could hear was that faint electronic beep echoing in my memory. That's my husband," I whispered. The detective's face tightened. He closed the folder gently, like someone handling something dangerous. "Ma'am, your husband is a person of interest in an ongoing multi-state investigation regarding stalking, coercive threats, and illegal surveillance." The world narrowed into a pinpoint of sound. Everything I thought I knew collapsed. And for the first time in 9 years, I realized I wasn't married to a man. I was married to a stranger, a watcher, a collector of secrets, a ghost hiding inside a borrowed name. Discovery doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens in layers, painful, quiet layers, each one peeling back the life you thought was real. After the detective left my school, I drove home in a daze. I don't remember the road, the stoplights, or even pulling into the driveway. My hands shook as I unlocked the door. The house felt different, as if the walls knew I finally understood what they'd been holding. I walked through each room slowly, the living room, the kitchen, the hallway, all the spaces that had once wrapped me in comfort, now rippled with unease. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to breathe, not deeply, just enough to stay present. The detective's words echoed. Person of interest in an ongoing multi-state investigation. Illegal surveillance. Stalking. And the one that hurt the most. Ma'am, he's been using an alias for years. I needed proof. Something concrete that would confirm the nightmare wasn't just fear twisting itself into shape. So I did something I had never done in 9 years. I searched Damian's things. His closet was immaculate, almost unnervingly tidy, row after row of pressed shirts arranged by color, shoes lined up with military precision. But below the order, in the far back corner, I found a small black lockbox. I knew better than to open it. I wasn't that kind of wife, but fear makes you bolder than love ever does. I carried it to the bed, sat down, and took a breath. The lock was simple, a generic combination model. 4 digits. I stared at it. 4 digits. What would he choose? A date? A number he'd repeat? Something from memory? I tried our anniversary first. No click. His birthday? Nothing. A strange thought flashed through my mind. He memorized everything I ever lost. Keys, wallet, phone. The way he'd always find things quickly. So I tried my own birthday. The lock slid open. Inside were items so ordinary in appearance, yet so deeply violating in implication. A stack of SIM cards, a small flash drive, a folded sheet of paper with usernames and passwords, a second phone I'd never seen before, and a key with a storage unit number scratched onto metal. My chest tightened. This wasn't paranoia.
This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a man living two lives, one with me, one hidden beneath me. I turned on the second phone. No passcode. There were no text messages, no photos, just a clump of apps, encrypted messaging platforms, multiple email accounts, secure cloud backups, and one folder labeled Archives. When I opened it, I expected messages, maybe photos, maybe screenshots. What I found instead made my breath stop. Logs, daily logs, time-stamped entries, names, addresses, patterns, notes describing women he had observed over the years. And there, my name, not under Lucy, but under Asset L09. A list of my routines. When I woke up, when I left for work, what I wore, my classroom number, my lunch break, my friends, my habits, even the foods I craved when stressed. A full psychological breakdown of me, written like a case file. My vision blurred. I set the phone down slowly as if it might explode. I felt watched. Not just generally, specifically, intimately. A need rose in me, quiet but fierce, to get out of the house. Fresh air, a horizon, space. I grabbed my coat and keys and headed to the car. I drove aimlessly until I reached the narrow field behind our neighborhood. The same place Damian and I once picnicked. Back when I believed he loved me simply because he said he did. I parked, stepped out, leaned against the hood, and let the cold wind sting my face. For the first time, I asked myself a question that would shape everything that followed. If he has been watching me, what else has he done? The only way to know was to confront the darkness head on. I called the detective from earlier. My voice trembled only once. I found something, I said. You need to see it. He met me an hour later in an unmarked car near the field. He listened carefully, asked methodical questions, and took photos of the evidence. But what he said next chilled me more than anything I had found so far. Mrs. Alden, Damian Wells doesn't legally exist. Daniel Mercer disappeared 4 years ago after a stalking case was reopened. Nobody's seen him since. I swallowed hard. So, who have I been living with? He answered, someone who knows how to stay hidden, and someone who doesn't let people close without a purpose. The detective told me to be cautious, very cautious. Do not confront him. Do not mention what you found. Act normal. We'll handle this. But I knew something the detective didn't. Damian could read me like a page left open on a desk. He could sense the slightest shift in tone, the smallest twitch of doubt. I couldn't go home that night, really, but I did anyway. Because running wasn't an option yet. Because the story wasn't finished. Because fear had turned into something sharper, clearer. Not anger. Not yet. Awareness. The kind that expands, fills the body, and hardens the resolve. When I walked through the door, Damian stood in the hallway waiting for me. Long day? He asked softly. The perfect husband. The gentle voice. The calm eyes. For the first time, I saw the performance behind it. And for the first time, I performed back.
I didn't sleep the night after the discovery. I lay stiff on the edge of the bed, his bed, listening to Damian breathe beside her. Every inhale felt like a lie I'd swallowed for years. Every exhale felt like a countdown. I kept replaying that folder on his hidden drive. The sealed court documents, the blurred security stills, the notes from the investigator he'd paid to track a woman who had testified against him. I had married a ghost wearing a man's skin. By sunrise, her shock had simmered into something sharper, something cold, something she hadn't felt in years. Self-preservation. And under that, rage. Not loud, not explosive, quiet, surgical. I sat at the small desk in our bedroom and opened her journal, the one he never bothered to look at because he believed my life revolved around him anyway. My hands trembled as I wrote the first words. If Damian hid this from me, what else is he capable of? The question hovered in the air like a warning. I needed a plan, not just to leave, not just to expose him, but to save myself from the fallout he would absolutely try to drag me into when everything unraveled. Damian didn't lose. Damian eliminated problems. I knew that now. I knew she couldn't confront him first. That would be suicide. Legally, emotionally, physically. Damian didn't believe in consequences. He believed in loopholes and intimidation. So, I began by protecting the parts of my life he could weaponize. I opened a new bank account online, using my maiden name. I transferred small amounts of money from our joint account. Nothing he'd notice immediately, just enough to secure myself. I packed a few basic things into a discreet bag and hid it in the trunk of my old car, tucked beneath a worn emergency blanket. I rehearsed a lie for when he asked where she was going. Just picking up groceries, just taking a walk, just running errands. But the truth was simpler. I was creating her escape route, one quiet step at a time. I knew I couldn't go to the police yet. I needed more than suspicion and a hidden folder. I needed corroboration and protection. So I went to the only two people in my life who weren't tied to Damian, my colleague and longtime confidant, Marisha, and my cousin David, an attorney who specialized in civil litigation. I didn't tell them everything at first, just enough to test the waters. But when I finally broke down and told David a condensed version, what I found, what I feared, and how implicated I might become, he didn't react with disbelief. He reacted with urgency. Lucy, if what you're saying is true, you need to document every single thing. Dates, files, screenshots. Don't confront him. Don't hint you know. Don't behave any differently at home. I feel like I'm suffocating, she whispered. You will not go through this alone, David said, his voice steady. But you must move strategically. Damian sounds like someone who will escalate if cornered. Marisha, meanwhile, became my lookout, watching for inconsistencies, gathering old stories Damian had told over the years that suddenly didn't add up, even subtly collecting timestamps of moments he had lied without reason. They became my shield, my lifeline. For weeks, I played the role of loving, oblivious wife. Smiling through dinners, chatting about bills, folding laundry beside the man I now saw as a predator with a wedding ring. Every interaction became a performance. Every smile, a mask. Every kiss on the cheek, a silent countdown. Behind the scenes, I methodically backed up everything I had found. I printed copies of the court documents, I recorded timestamps of the incriminating files, I downloaded metadata from the images, I snapped photos of Damian's handwritten notes before placing them back exactly as she found them. I hid everything inside a waterproof envelope, taped beneath the spare tire in her car. I also began recording my conversations with him, not to catch a confession, but to capture his patterns, manipulation, evasiveness, inconsistencies.
David told her it might become relevant if Damian tried to twist events against her later. And he absolutely would. Men like Damian didn't fall alone. They dragged others down with them. What I then needed next wasn't just evidence. I needed movement. I needed Damian to make the mistake she could legally use. So I began planting small suggestions, innocent questions that made him nervous, but not suspicious. Hey, you got a weird call from an unknown number today. Sounded official. Should I be concerned? Damian tensed. What? No, ignore it. Another day. You seemed yumpy when that mail came. Is something wrong? He snapped. It's work stuff. And once, I saw a name pop up on your screen. Someone named Eliza? Do I know her? He froze. Eliza was the first victim's name. I was the moment I confirmed something chilling. Damian never expected her to look behind the curtain. He thought she was naive enough to worship the mask he wore. So, he let him believe exactly that. But now, she had him rattled. After weeks of careful preparation, I handed everything. Every document, file, recording, screenshot to David, who organized them into a secure legal package and gave copies to a trusted investigator he knew. If something happens to you, he said gently, this packet goes directly to law enforcement. The words hit me like a punch. Something about hearing them out loud made the danger real. Damian won't let go easily, she whispered. And that, David replied, is exactly why you need to be smarter than him. And you are. I wasn't seeking revenge for revenge's sake. I wanted freedom. I wanted truth exposed. I wanted Damian stripped of the life he built on lies and pain. And I wanted every woman he had hurt to finally be believed. My final step was simple, but it held the weight of everything she had endured. I wrote an email addressed to Damian, but didn't send it yet. It contained a single line. I know what you did. Not to warn him, but to mark the exact moment his world would collapse. I closed my laptop, exhaled, and whispered into the quiet room. Soon. Because now the plan was in motion. The trap was set, and Damian would never see it coming.
The night everything unraveled didn't begin with a bang. It began with silence, the kind that settles in a home before a storm, dense and watchful. I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the unsent email glowing on her laptop screen. I know what you did. I hovered over the send button, my chest pounding, not out of fear, but readiness. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, securing evidence, creating distance, alerting her allies. Now it was time to trigger the avalanche. I clicked send. Then I closed the laptop, stood, and waited. Damian walked in 15 minutes later, tossing his keys onto the counter with that same carefree confidence he wore like a second skin. But it vanished when he saw me standing in the doorway, my posture composed, too composed. He said, "Hey, Luce, you're home early." I didn't answer. I simply watched him, searching for the tremor I hoped to see. It took 30 seconds. His phone buzzed. He glanced down. His face drained of color. He looked up at me sharply, suspicion flashing like a blade. "What is this?" he demanded.
You know exactly what it is, I replied, my voice steady. He stared at her, calculating. This some kind of joke? No, I said. It's the truth you've been hiding. For the first time since I had known him, Damian didn't have a script ready. His mask faltered. You've been going through my things, he snapped. But there was fear beneath the anger, real, breathing fear. Hey, you shouldn't be messing with things you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that the man I married is a liar. I understand that you have victims, court records, charges you ran from, a life you made sure I never saw. He took a slow step forward. Who's been talking to you? No one had to. You left everything hidden in our home. He froze. There it was, the crack I needed. Damian moved closer, his voice dropping into the tone he used when he wanted control. Luce, listen to me. I don't know what you think you found, but people lie. Those files are old, dismissed, twisted. Whoever's behind this is trying to ruin me, ruin us. Us. He still had the audacity to use that word. I shook my head. There is no us left after this. His jaw tightened. You're overreacting. No, I whispered. I'm waking up. He reached out, too fast, and I instinctively stepped back. His eyes narrowed at the movement. Lucy, he said slowly, where is the original laptop? What did you do with the files? Everything has already been sent to someone else, actually. A fuse lit behind his expression. Who? It doesn't matter, because the moment anything happens to me, Damian, everything goes straight to law enforcement. He stared at me like I'd become a stranger, and maybe I had. The version of me he controlled for years no longer existed. You did this, he said softly, accusingly. You're trying to destroy my life. You destroyed your own life. I'm just refusing to let you take mine down with you. The next part unfolded like a psychological chess match. Damian paced the room, breathing heavily, muttering to himself as he tried to find an angle, a way to regain control. He asked questions, he tried guilt, he tried anger, he tried charm, softening his voice until it mimicked the man she once loved. But none of it landed. I had seen the truth behind his eyes. You're making a mistake, he said finally, voice trembling with something new, desperation. You don't understand how dangerous this is. For me, for you, if the police start digging, they will, I cut in, very soon. His head snapped up. What do you mean? I didn't answer. Not yet. At exactly 7:12 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Damian spun toward it, panic breaking across his features. Did you call someone? Lucy, did you call the police? My voice was steady as stone. Open it. He hesitated. I nodded. He opened the door and found David, my cousin, standing beside a uniformed officer. Damian's face collapsed. Mr. Holloway, the officer said, we'd like to ask you some questions regarding an ongoing investigation. Damian turned slowly toward me, betrayal twisting his expression into something feral. You brought them here, I said. No, your past did. David stepped inside, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. Damian's eyes flicked with venom. This is harassment, Damian snarled. You can't just show up here and... That laptop we discussed earlier, David said calmly, is already logged, time-stamped, and entered as evidence. You can answer their questions tonight, or you can speak with them later, after things escalate far beyond your control. Damian's voice cracked. Lucy, Why would you do this to me? Finally, I spoke the truth. Because every woman you hurt deserved justice. Because I deserved the truth. And because you thought you could live behind a mask forever. He shook his head, but panic had swallowed all his arrogance. You don't love me. No, I said. I loved the person you pretended to be. The officer stepped forward. Damian instinctively backed into the wall. Sir, we're only here to talk, but running or resisting will complicate everything. Damian stared at me for a long, trembling moment. Then finally, something inside him broke. He sagged, defeated, every lie collapsing under its own weight. You knew this day would come, but I didn't think you'd be you. I swallowed the burn in his throat. Neither did I. As the officers escorted him out, Damian looked back once, eyes wild with a mixture of fear, anger, and something almost pleading. But I didn't flinch. I didn't pry. I didn't rush after him. I stood rooted to the floor, steady for the first time in years. When the door closed, David exhaled shakily. You did it. No, I said. I began it. Because justice wasn't the end of my revenge. Truth was. Freedom was. My life rebuilt on my own terms was. And now that Damian's mask had finally shattered, I wasn't scared anymore. I was done surviving. I was ready to rise.
The house felt strangely bigger after Damian was gone. Not quieter, just freer, as if the walls themselves had stopped holding their breath. For weeks, I walked from room to room, relearning the shape of my life, without him in it. And strangely, what I felt most wasn't grief. It was relief. People often imagine betrayal as a storm that destroys everything. But what they don't realize is that storms also clear the air. They expose what's been rotting beneath the surface. They force you to see the truth with clean eyes. And when the truth finally stood in front of me, it didn't break me. It released me. The months that followed were heavy with processing, rebuilding, and reclaiming. There were police interviews, legal steps, therapy sessions, and long nights of asking myself how I missed so much. But somewhere in that slow climb back to myself, I learned something important. Something I hope someone listening tonight truly hears. Betrayal is not the end of your story. It's the end of their control. People like Damian thrive in silence. They rely on your loyalty, your doubt, your fear. They write the narrative for you until the moment you decide to tell the story yourself. Once I started choosing truth over fear, everything shifted. My voice returned, my confidence returned, my future returned. Revenge for me wasn't about cruelty or destruction. It was about correction. It was about reclaiming what someone tried to take. Revenge is power when it becomes clarity, when it becomes the act of saying, you may have broken the illusion, but you will not break me. I didn't confront Damian to ruin his life. I confronted him so he could no longer ruin anyone else's. That is the difference between destruction and justice, between bitterness and strength, between being a victim and becoming something more. If you're listening right now and standing in the aftermath of your own betrayal, I want you to know this. You can come back from anything. Even from the things you thought would end you, even from the people you trusted the most. Your story is not over just because someone tried to write you into a corner. You hold the pen now, and you can rewrite everything from this moment on.
As for me, I've started again. My name is Lucy Holloway, and the woman who once whispered her fears now speaks her truth with a steady voice. The woman who shrank herself to survive now stands tall enough to thrive. My comeback wasn't loud or dramatic. It was deliberate, quiet, and powerful. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, not as the woman Damian crafted, but as the woman I always was underneath. And if my journey proves anything, it's this. You don't rise because the world is kind. You rise because you decide you're done staying low. This was another story from Revenge Bible, where we turn pain into purpose and betrayal into balance. Subscribe and join us for the next transformation.